Councillors, members of the public and people listening online, and we'll just wait for the recording. We on? Excellent. So I declare the meeting open at 7:06 p.m. Members of the public that have registered to speak by audio-visual link on an agenda item are asked to keep your microphone muted, please, and video off until invited to speak. Speakers will not be able to present material as part of their speaking time or share their screen. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone, do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Defamation laws apply to addresses in public forum. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and meeting etiquette. Specifically, debate on an item will commence only once we have a mover and seconder, other than the Merrell Minute. The mover has a right of reply before the motion is put to a vote. You can speak up to 5 minutes for or against a motion or similar amendment. I remind all present that the video recording is an official record of council and may be made available to persons upon request in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recordings are permitted. And I just acknowledge our wonderful football girls in the back. Welcome. And we'll have a presentation, and families, and we'll have a presentation very soon for you. Bayside Council acknowledges the traditional custodians, the Gadigal and Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, and pays respects to elders past and present. The people of the Eora Nation, their spirits and ancestors will always remain with our waterways and the land, our Mother Earth. I would now like to invite Father Santiago from St Thomas More Catholic Church, Brighton Les Sands, to open the meeting in prayer. Please be upstanding.
Let us bring ourselves in silence for a moment as we begin our opening prayer. Heavenly Father, we gather this evening in gratitude for the gift of leadership and awareness of our service to the people of Bayside community. We pray in our meeting tonight, and we ask you to bless our leaders in the different committees of this council, its participants, the public present, the invited guests, who through their commitment and responsibilities invites us all in building a vision that will lead us to openness and significant opportunities for the future of Bayside Council in service to the people and its residents. Amen.
Thank you, Father Santiago. That takes us to attendance and apologies. Councillor Douglas has submitted an apology. There are no other apologies or any seeking leave of absence. Someone moved Councillor Naji, seconded Councillor Barlow. All those in favour say aye, against declare it carried. Disclosures of interest. Are there any councillors that wish to make a disclosure of interest? Councillor Werner.
Yes, I would like to declare
Please be
less.
upstanding.
Oh,
Thank
sure.
you.
I'd like to declare a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in item 11.1 CS 22016, as under clause 5.2 of the Bayside Code of Conduct. I no longer have a private interest, and I'm no longer a member of Friends of Gardiner Park Inc. And under 5.9b, I do not have a close personal relationship with anyone who could benefit from this decision, nor am I under 9.5c involved in any management or administration or any other activities of any organisations involved. So on this basis, I will remain in the chamber for consideration and voting on this item. Also, the same goes for CS 22.016 7, I'm declaring a less than significant non-pecuniary interest.
Which item's that, please, Councillor
Oh,
Werner?
sorry. So the first item was Gardiner Park Reference Group, draft terms of reference. The second one, Gardiner Park High Fence Risk Assessment. And for the same reasons, under the same clauses, and on this basis, I'll remain in the chamber for consideration and voting on
So it's
these
just
items.
those two?
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Councillor Nard?
Thank you,
Nigel?
Madam Mayor. I declare conflict of interest on CPE 22018. It's a planning proposal for 215-235 O'Riordan Street and Owen Street, on the basis that I'm on the City Eastern panel and I won't be taking part in the voting or discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nargi.
And similarly, I'd like to declare a conflict of duties regarding the planning matters as I'm on the panel.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Are there any other? No others? Okay, thank you, councillors. That now takes us to the minutes of the previous meeting. So we have 2 minutes there. We have the minutes of the council meeting of the 22nd of June 2022. Can I have a move? Councillor Nargi, seconded Councillor Souness. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. We have 6.2, the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 29th of June 2022. Moved Councillor Jansen, seconded Councillor Ruada. All those in favour say aye. Against, I declare it carried. We're going to pause for a moment now and take the opportunity to congratulate our amazing Rockdale City Suns Illidan FC Under-12 girls team. And we just wanted to invite you along to council because we're so proud of your achievements, and it's just, I'm sure you trained very hard and you've had wonderful success, and I'm sure you've got great family support and your coach and your trainers and everyone who gives up their time to make, to give you this opportunity. And so well done, girls, and it's wonderful to see girls out there too taking out those championships. So I can say that, can't I? All right, so I'd like to invite you all, girls, if you'd like to come up and around here and the coaches. Thank you. Any councillors who'd like to? Thank you, councillors. That now takes us to our Merrell Minutes, and I'm going to just to Merrell Minute 7.2 for now, because we're waiting for another guest to come in relation to 7.1, so I'll hold off on that for now. So Merrell Minute 7.2 is paving the way with rubber. So this is a significant project which is currently being coordinated by SS Rock, and Bayside Council's active participation, and we're part of a trial where we're using disposed tyres as a modified asphalt mix to be used in the road sheeting. So it's mixed within there. So it's quite a, you can see there from the Merrell Minute that it certainly has some preliminary findings to date show the following benefits of utilising this type of asphalt. So greater performance and durability, and we all know that it's been a challenge with the wet weather and particularly potholes appearing. So this has greater pavement fatigue resistance, and it also has enhanced tyre pavement friction, and it is environmentally friendly as it's used, as we use recycled end-of-life tyres specifically. So there's a bit more information there that councillors and public can continue to read. So this is a great example of councils working together to create economies of scale and to drive demand for future makers and investments of jobs, while also improving the environmental and asset performance outcomes. So is there anyone that would like to speak? Councillor Werner.
Thank you. I think this is, in some ways, it is a really good thing for SS Rock to do. The only thing is, and I know we've discussed this, and we are going to send some questions to the organisation. One thing that I am concerned about is the environmental impacts, because old car tyres can be quite toxic, and so there are some problems with that. Now, the other thing is that road base is fully recyclable before it has those kinds of additives, and there are sort of conflicting reports about how recyclable road base is once it has had these additives put in it. So I think there still needs to be a bit more research done into this before we can really say that it is environmentally friendly. But yeah, thank you for this minute.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Werner, and I know that the GM has written to SS Rock to get further information, because it's important that we're conscious of all these things and making ethical decisions. So thank you. Councillor Cedrak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I stand in support of this Merrell Minute. I think it's an amazing initiative, which we have seen used overseas successfully by turning a negative into a positive. And I know myself, just trying to recycle a tyre cost approximately $43 to $45, depending on which tip you go to, per tyre. And I've had to pay that myself. So I think this is an amazing initiative to use some of this recycled material in our road. And Madam Mayor, if I could suggest that Russell Avenue, Sans Souci from, in 5th Ward, I'm just going to pose it out there. Madam Mayor, I know I didn't tell you about this, but it came through.
Just popped into your head.
That Russell Avenue, Sans Souci has been an issue for a long time, down all the way to Dolls Point. I know it's been due to be resurfaced next year or the year after. So I thought, what better way than to trial this new asphalt by putting it on a road which has been complaining about excessive noise, excessive speed, anti-hooning behaviour, yada, yada, yada. We know the whole story. We're not going to go there. However, I think this would be a great initiative, not only for you, Madam Mayor, to really bring back recycling into our council, as well as especially in this neck of the woods where there has been an increased traffic with Peter Debenham Playground, as well as the Scots College. Peter DePina, sorry. Okay. People get emotional, so are you
All
okay?
right, thank you,
okay?
thank you.
Okay.
Continue, Councillor.
I'd like to thank Councillor Tunis for all his assistance throughout this project, and other councillors, and I commend you for this motion, Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you, Councillor Cedrat. Councillor Souness.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few years ago, myself and Councillor Naju went to the transport conference, the Road and Transport Conference, and that was brought up as a topic there. But at the time, the economies of scale to shred tyres, and I know Councillor Cedric was talking about recycling versus landfill. It's actually landfill what you're talking about. Shredding a tyre didn't have the economic merit in doing it back then, because the Chinese, in inverted commas, economy was taking them back in containers that were being brought here to us. So that was taking it back. The economies of scale weren't there, so they were taking it back. Now the opportunity, because the system of rubbish transfer across the world has changed, and a lot of that recyclable material, or that waste material I should say, that can be recycled, has got now a different value, because now it costs us to send back. So the opportunity to shred them and to reuse them in roads is a phenomenal thing. The economies of scale now have become viable to allow that, and it's a great initiative that SS Rock is taking, because obviously we're talking bulk, we're multiplying whatever the contracts are by a certain number of councils to make that viable. We're always looking, as a council, as an organisation, trying to be environmentally responsible. This is one of the fantastic ways of being responsible, because a tyre, when it goes in the landfill, stays there forever. Doesn't come out of landfill. It stays there forever until we dig it up one day and create a new park. So it's a great initiative, and I commend the SS Rock and the council for moving in that direction.
Thank you, Councillor Souness. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I suppose this type of initiative is best described as a project where the rubber hits the road. But look, I do, and I commend you on your mayoral minute, and I think this is definitely worth trialling. I do commend Councillor Werner for her comments, because I think we do really have to consider the environmental issues, in particular anything that might come off the road that makes its way into the waterways, fragments of rubber. There's also synthetics that go into making tyres now. It's not all natural rubber. There's a lot of synthetic rubber that goes in there as well. So in terms of the trial, I think it's fantastic. Maybe a couple of those back streets in Bexley North that are waiting for their footpaths, maybe those elderly residents might put a bit of a spring in their step if we put this pavement on their roads, Madam Mayor. So, but in any event, look, I think the trial's great, and I think we definitely need to tread carefully.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I say in terms of which street is selected, we should stick to the Merrell Minute, which says that will be part of the resheeting schedule. So I believe it's best to let staff decide which streets are resheeted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. All right, Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief. Look, I think this is a great initiative, and once again, great work from SS Rock. But I'd also just like to congratulate all our staff in our waste team. They are really committed to war, waste avoidance and resource recovery. I think our council can be very proud that we provide a lot of thought leadership in our area beyond just providing these services to our community. I think this is a great thing moving forward. Every tyre that's going into our road, and I acknowledge the concerns, but would otherwise be basically ending up in landfill. This is part of the circular economy. I'm sure it will improve over time. This is a trial, but congratulations to all the staff, to SS Rock and everyone moving forward. I think this is great.
Well said, Councillor McDougall. Thank you. No other speakers. I'll put the Merrell Minute. All those in favour say aye. Against. Declare that carried. Okay, councillors, I'm going to move to 7.1, which is a Merrell Minute. So this Merrell Minute is I wanted to do a motion of condolence. Many of you know Carolyn McMahon OAM, and Carolyn was a wonderful contributor to our community over many, many years and across numerous organisations. And I had the pleasure of meeting Carolyn 10 years ago, and saw her at numerous events because she was always there and always a part of the community, and always had a lot of knowledge and advice, and just knew the community so well. And some of the groups that Carolyn worked across were the Meals on Wheels, when it was run by council, St Vincent de Paul, the New South Wales SES too, her local church, which was St Therese Catholic Church at Mascot. And Carolyn was also a former warrant officer in the Army Reserve as well, so played a big role in Mascot RSL sub-branch as well. So I have to say, probably I've never seen anyone contribute across so many organisations across the community, and Carolyn will be dearly missed. And I think, where we'll, for many of us, we'll certainly miss her at our march, won't we? She played a pivotal role there, and so I just wanted to put together this Merrell Minute, and I know that I'd also like to, in a moment, Carolyn's friend Pam is here to accept the Merrell Minute, and I know that the member for Heffron, Ron Honig, is here today, so I might invite you, Ron Honig, first, if you'd like to come up and say a few words, and then we can present the Merrell Minute to Pam.
Madam Mayor, can I, on behalf of the community I represent, express my appreciation to you and the council for considering a motion of condolence to somebody who has given such significant service to the community, and the community is still today in shock at her loss. In decades of public office, I have never come across anybody who has given so much of all of her time to so much of that part of the community who needed help. Every part of the community that needed help, Carolyn was involved in for decades, consistently. She was recognised by her nation several years ago with a Medal of the Order of Australia, of which I was honoured to have some contribution in respect of that. She is well known to some of the councillors for her role as part of Mascot RSL sub-branch, as a secretary for many years, or member of the executive. She was a warrant officer in the Army Reserve, and she ran the Anzac Day, Mascot Anzac Day March as if she was a current RSM. But apart from that service, she was integrally involved in Meals on Wheels, providing meals to those who could not feed themselves for decades. The St Vincent de Paul Society, St Therese Catholic Church, Randwick Botany Meals on Wheels. There was not one facet of the community that was not touched by Carolyn McMahon. In fact, I looked at some documents today, and I came across a note from Caroline dated March 1981, where she had established, together with Pam Richardson, the Mascot Walkabout Group, or the Walkabout Group was for Mascot and East Lakes elderly citizens, and arranging each month an outing for those senior citizens with no money, no resources, just an activity that her and Pam decided to start together. Or a letter dated 1998 that I found from Carolyn today, saying that after 3 years of chairperson of the committee at St Therese Catholic Church and 3 years as secretary, she was going to stand down for a break. Well, that break lasted about 3 months, I think, before she recommitted herself back again to the Catholic Church. And on a personal level, I've got to say, I don't remember a single birthday of mine where a birthday card signed by Carolyn and Pam Richardson did not appear in my letterbox on my birthday. In fact, their delivery of a birthday card to me was far more prompt than my own children, I can tell you. Her service was just exemplary in so many areas. She was an integral part of people's lives who needed her. The community is going to miss the very person whom they need. You know, many of us who are part of the community would like to make some contribution, but the most significant contribution that anybody can make during their life is to leave society a better place than it was before they came into it. Well, Carolyn McMahon had done that in spades. She will be missed. She is such a significant loss, and I'm so delighted that, Madam Mayor, that this council represents her own community, recognises her today by the Merrell Minute that you've introduced. Vale Carolyn McMahon.
Thank you. Would you like to stay up here, and I might ask Pam Richardson if you would like to come up and accept the Merrell Minute. Thank you, councillors. This now takes us to 7.3, our final Merrell Minute. This, I have to say, is very exciting initiative for council. It is our first investment into a green term deposit. So what that basically means is it's a sustainable investment, and so with a bit more detail, it's they're a new product, and in this case offered by CBA to help businesses transition to a low carbon future. And so what it's, so anyone that, it's about sustainability performance targets and measurable improvements in KPIs which can fall into different categories such as environmental, so around energy efficiency, greenhouse gases, social, so affordable housing, employee health and safety, and in governance, in business ethics and conduct. So any borrowers are required to provide CBA at least annually with up-to-date information sufficient to allow them to monitor the performance. So what we've done is we've invested some of our Barton Park T Corp into one of these environmental, social and governance terms. So very exciting that we're, you know, council are making a range of ethical investment decisions. So thanks for the work that's gone into that. Are there any speakers?
Thank you, Madam
Councillor
Mayor. I
Sarah
rise to support your Merrell Minute. As a competitor working for St George Bank, it'd be good if my bank and Westpac take on board. But the critical issue is in terms of our community. We're sending a message to our community that we are fair income in relation to this situation, and it sends a message out to the community that encouraging other businesses to get involved. I do know that in the banking system, the banks do encourage more and more change investments in terms of coal into renewable energy, and that's a critical issue in terms of us being a council. We're on the front foot on it, and I commend you and I commend the staff for their support in this project, and I'm sure Scott and I will take up with our employer to do the same, which I'm sure they will. I'm sure they have, but I'll certainly make inquiries.
Thank you, Councillor Saranowski. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Hannah.
Congratulations, Madam Mayor. This is fantastic. I don't know whether it's appropriate to ask this question, but I'll ask it anyway. What interest rate are we actually paying on the T Corp loan? Is that an appropriate question?
I might defer to the director, please, Mr. Mamo.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So when we took the funds out, I think it was in mid-June, and the borrowing rate was at 3.19%. So we're actually getting a positive return on this term deposit.
That's fabulous. I thought that was the case. That's why I thought I'd ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you. No further speakers. I'll put the Merrell Minute. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This takes us to items by exception, councillors. So prior to the public forum, I will now proceed to deal with the remainder of the business on the paper by exception. So councillors, the public forum items and the items where councillors have a pecuniary interest or significant interest will be dealt with individually. Councillors, are there, besides those that have been already raised, are there any other items that any councillors would like to pull out and deal with individually? I'll give you a moment, and I might just go round the... No? Councillor Jansen? No? 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 Can you tell me which committee that is? Where is it? Oh. Oh, okay. Yep. Thank you, Councillor Barlow. There's no other items. All right, so then, so all the other items will be dealt with by one resolution. So I'll reaffirm those items. So we will move by exception 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, 10.4. Then in the minutes of the committees, the minutes of the City Services Committee, they're all staying. So in 11.2, the minutes of the City Planning Environment, we will move 17, 19, 20, 21. 11.3, in the minutes of the City Works and Assets Committee meeting, we will move 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. In the minutes, 11.4, in the minutes of the Bayside Traffic Committee meeting, we will move 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88. And that is all of them. Can I have a mover? Move Councillor Morris. No, that's okay. So I'm pulling out the item where you and Councillor Naji have. So. Yeah, on 17 as well. That's just a VPA. Let me pull it out. I'll pull out CPE 22017. Yeah, I've pulled that. Yeah, yeah. All right, so can I have someone to move that way? Move Councillor Morrissey, seconded Councillor Fardell. All those in favour say aye. Against? I declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. That now takes us to the public forum. So we have some speakers for the public forum. We have speakers tonight dealing with item 11.1, the Gardiner Park Reference Group. We have item and number 16, item 11.1, number 17, the Gardiner Park High Fence Risk Assessment, and we have item 11.2, planning proposal for O'Riordan and Ewan Street. Speakers are advised that a warning bell will sound when only 1 minute of speaking time remains. Speakers who are joining the meeting via Teams app are to have their video off and microphone muted until invited to speak. Speakers will be removed from Teams once the item has concluded. You can then watch the remainder of the meeting on Bayside Council's YouTube page. If you registered a written submission, these have been provided to councillors on the portal prior to the meeting. Speakers are reminded to keep communication factual, polite and professional, and to use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks, and defamation laws apply to addresses in public forum. All right, so we're going to start with 11.1, 0.16. So that is the Gardiner Park Reference Group, draft terms of reference. And we have Miss Catriona Carver, who would like to speak against the officer recommendation. Miss Carver, I can see you online. Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors, and thank you for allowing this item to be addressed. As you know, Gardiner Park is very much loved by the residents around here, and this is the reference group, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. So the reference group, as you know, many of us were very happy to hear about a reference group, and we looked forward to submitting. We know that there were over 20 people who submitted. I was one of them, and full disclosure, I am part of the Friends of Gardiner Park. It was a little disappointing to see that nobody from Friends of Gardiner Park, which is a small membership group of core people, apart from all of the locals who supported us and donated, but none of the core members of Friends of Gardiner Park were invited to be on the group. And there was a reason this could have been a benefit, as we're all looking to repair some of the relationships that are happening there. As you know, there's always a lot of chatter about Gardiner Park, and I thought the reference group would have been a good place for any one of the core team to have helped on this park. We have a deep knowledge of the park. We love that park. And that was the idea of us coming on and talking. So slightly disappointed that I didn't get to talk, but I did actually send an email prior to the meeting of the City Services meeting, just expressing a concern for one of the names on the list. I went to watch the YouTube video of the meeting, and the meeting is 7 minutes on YouTube. It's short. And when it gets to the conversation about Gardiner Park, the sound disappears, and then the meeting disappears. So I haven't actually had a reason for why that meeting is no longer available, or it's been compromised or damaged or something. So I actually don't know what actually happened. So I hope tonight that I get to hear that maybe there's been a change to the list that was there. But of course it is accepted, whoever you have chosen, and we hope to always repair the relationship that goes on there. But will you be, I know you can't answer, but I hope that you will be announcing the names shortly, and we hope to work with those people as well. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carver, for being here and addressing us this evening. Okay, councillors, that takes us to, we will now deal with this item. So in relation to the reference group now, as part of the recommendation to, there was a request for councillors and a chair, and I've received some expressions of interest from councillors who would like to be on that reference group, and those expressions of interest have been received from Councillor Hannah, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Tsounis and Councillor Fardell, and a nomination for chair of that committee from Councillor Barlow. Moved, thank you, Councillor Saranowski. Second, Councillor Morrissey. Are there any further nominations? Okay, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, I declare that carried. All right, that takes us to item CS 22.017, which is the Gardiner Park fence. And
Sorry, have we finished talking about 0.16? Because I think there was also a list of reference group members from the public. Is that correct?
That's correct. So they were in the papers
Yep.
from the committee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Could I please ask a question?
Just one moment,
through the
Councillor Werner,
chair?
because we would have to recommit the item because we've moved on from it. So is there someone that's happy to move to recommit? Thanks, Councillor Nargi. Seconded, Councillor Jansen will recommit that paper, and
Thank you.
then we'll move. So yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. So I was just wondering, through the chair, if the appropriate director could maybe let us know if there were any applicants that were considered that were not considered for the group on the basis of potentially being a member of the Friends of Gardiner Park.
So I think, as outlined in the committee paper, there was, and what was originally sent out in, because I did query this myself as well, and hence why the committee report was quite detailed in the methodology that was used. And so when the information was, anyone could express request an application, and so there was a number of criteria in that application, and then people that had applied were benchmarked against that particular criteria. And in the report, I don't know if you've had a chance to read that. Yeah, so that sort of explains how how they met the criteria, determined who council nominated onto that committee.
Okay, thank you. And can I ask, are there any members of the reference group that are also members of Friends of Gardiner Park?
No, we don't believe.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, seeing as the Friends of Gardiner Park have been a very active group in the community, and they have expressed, they know the park very well. On what basis were they excluded from the reference group?
Look, I think, Councillor Werner, there's an extensive methodology was used outside of councillors, and as you stated earlier, you were a member of that group. So I think it's just got to be, be conscious too, and I think that it's a process was undertaken, and that's the process that has been endorsed by, and the group that's been endorsed by council. Thank you. All right, so we'll recommit that, move that again. So I think it was moved by Councillor Nargi, seconded by Councillor Saranowski. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This takes us to Gardiner Park High Fence Risk Assessment. So we have 3 speakers now. As per our code of meeting, we have, if there is more than 3, if there's 3 or more speakers, their time is reduced to 3 minutes, and the speakers were informed of that prior to the meeting. So they were advised that there were 3 speakers and each allocated 3 minutes. So I now invite, I think we've got Miss Carver again, who will be speaking on Teams. Ms Carver, I invite you to speak to the Gardiner Park fence item.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor and councillors. Just a bit more on this fence. Again, I wasn't able to watch the meeting because the YouTube video is compromised. So it would be good to be able to watch that at a further time. The fence that we're talking about is the third fence. This is visible from the rose garden. The plan, which was the brochure sent around to residents, the plan sent to residents didn't have this fence. It was put on the natural turf field, which was meant to be an open field. So this third fence is an open fence. It doesn't actually have an end to it. It wasn't one goal against one goal. It's just a single fence. The drawing was flat, so we actually couldn't see it. But the fence is actually in direct line to the Rose Garden pedestrian entrance. So you actually have to walk around the fence to actually get to the access point. So the design part of the fence could have been addressed if maybe a landscape architect had a look over the plans. I believe it was only a design and construct. But looking at the paperwork behind the risk assessment, the advice is given by Civic Risk Mutual, which is in the paperwork as council's insurance company. A quick look at Civic Risk is that it actually isn't an insurance company. When I looked at their website, it says that they are an advisory on risk. There are 3 members of Civic Risk who are also employees of Bayside Council. So Councillor McDougall, you'd be familiar with it, Fausto Soot, Governance, and Michael Mamo are 3 members of Civic Risk. Just talking facts. The risk reasons rely on a case from 1951 of a cricket ball that went over a fence and it actually hit a committee member. So they were actually close to the field. The case was lost, but cricket isn't played at Gardiner Park. There's no evidence of any ball that's gone over a fence and hit anybody. There's more risk actually on a soccer field if you head a ball. And there's actually more risk from the heat of synthetic as well, but there's more injuries on a synthetic field than there are off. And soccer balls don't travel as hard or as fast as a cricket ball. They tend to lop over the fence. But where this fence is, it's actually on the side of the cricket, side of the soccer. The goals are on the other side, so it's not even on a goal end. But this fence, again, is visually intrusive. And this afternoon I was listening to ABC 702 and Caroline, who is the head of Sport New South Wales, said that most synthetic fields are actually in an attractive way with a picket fence. So this fence is actually unattractive, it's unnecessary. And a year ago you decided, so my request is for you to defer this decision and give it to the Gardiner Park Reference Group. If you can't disagree with the fence, then I think that giving it to the Gardiner Park Reference Group. So if you can, vote to defer this and give it to the Gardiner Park Reference Group, as I'm sure they could see there are many other risks to the park because of the troughs. There's lots of foot areas where you could trip. So I think there should be an entire risk assessment done, not just on a fence, which is contentious. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms Carver. All right, I now invite Mr Duncan McLeod, who is speaking against the recommendation. Yes, please. Welcome.
Thank you for the chance to speak on this agenda item tonight. I'm a resident bordering Gardiner Park, and unfortunately we had this 6-metre fence constructed behind our property, which is visible from our backyard. So I can say I'm very much affected by this. This time last year, 10 residents joined together at the July 2021 council meeting to voice their dissatisfaction at poor process and over-the-top engineering, which had severely impacted properties and the park visually, with the fence being totally out of character with the bush surrounds. We were pleased to have the support of councillors Souness and McDonald at the time on the topic, who saw common sense in supporting its removal. We felt like we had a fair say at that meeting. Just to be clear, the resolution last year established that this was a fence out of proportion, unnecessary, and a mistake by council. Council endorsed that, and we were under the impression we were moving on as residents. 4 weeks ago, my family and 6 other Gardiner Avenue residents bordering this fence submitted a joint letter to ask why council hadn't followed through on the resolution from last July. To our astonishment, immediately after our submission, we had this current recommendation put forward by council to retain the fence, after one whole year of believing the issue had been resolved. The biggest point for tonight, though, is that this fence is not needed for a few simple facts. It's in the wrong place to stop soccer balls. Some of you may not be aware, but this fence was installed to sit behind the goal mouth, but now the field orientations run parallel with the fence. As a result, there aren't actually any balls being kicked into the fence, so it's serving no real purpose. So how does this recommendation make sense? Was the insurance advisor made aware of this particular point? Secondly, there is almost zero chance of a so-called catastrophic injury to neighbours compared with, say, walking along the sideline of one of the games going on. We are talking about a soccer ball here, plus a 50-metre gap to the houses, and with a line of large mature trees in between. We can all do the maths on this, and how can this seriously being used as the key excuse for retaining this visual eyesore? The recommendation seems to be concerned with injuries from cricket. Can I just say that this development at Gardiner Park has ensured that no other sports apart from soccer will be played in the park? Lastly, if risk of injury is the biggest concern, why is it that we have a 6-metre fence in this quiet part of the park but not one further down adjacent to the synthetic field, which is much busier? Insurance doesn't seem to have been a big motivator in the park design, but all of a sudden it is now. If safety is a real concern at the park, it's not here. It's in the management of bystanders in the park, traffic safety, wheelchair access, and the standing water tables that are now problems at this park. I challenge councillors to put yourself in the shoes of residents here where a fence has been mistakenly constructed. Put yourself in the shoes of having this at the back of your property for what is an incredibly flimsy reason.
Granted.
Thank you. And then having to fight your case here. Can I just say we need to allow Gardiner Park to move on from what's been a fractious past and start thinking about what is right for the community here. Please, let's bring the balance back to this place. The answer is not to leave the fence here where it has no real risk management value and is a major blight on the local landscape and on private properties. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I now invite Ms Leola Lux, affected neighbour, speaking against the recommendation. Welcome.
Hello, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I would also like to speak against the resolution to the high fence and to ask for the high fence considered in the Friends of Gardiner Park reference group. Again, I can only reiterate what Duncan and Katrina have said before me. There are issues with a very outsized fence that is blocking off entrance and egress into the park because it hasn't been planned appropriately. It's higher on the part of the park that is least used with the most soccer traffic compared to the actual soccer traffic, which has a lower fence by about apparently 2 metres at least, or much lower. So it just is very destructive to the environment of the whole park and the ability for people to use it. Again, the court decision it's based on is a British decision where the actual judgment showed that the particular fence wasn't even required. So again, it's quite confusing why that piece is nominated. Again, it's not an insurance company that is supposedly going to make the decision, and that decision seems to be compromised by having Councillor McDougall, the risk manager Fausto Soot, and the council director Michael Munro, sorry, can't read it properly, all on it as well, and it just doesn't seem to be exactly what it's supposed to be, which we would hope would be an evidence-based decision. And also, a motion that was passed in July 2021 to remove it because it was an accepted error of the council to put it in that way, and it hadn't been advised to anybody that it was going to be that high. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Mhm.
addressing us. So, just before we put this, I think it's just want to thank the three speakers for speaking tonight, and you know, I think I speak on behalf of councillors when I say, you know, we acknowledge the concerns raised, and you know, it is though important to note that councillors are constrained in the decision, and that is, you know, based on the specific history of this site and particularly the legal process that we have been party to. And I think, you know, when the resolution was made in the previous term of council, it was a different term of council, but it was also prior to any legal proceedings. So just wanted to flag that for, particularly for those, to give it a little bit more context. So we've got a recommendation in front of us. So first of all, do I have a mover and a
I'd like to move it, Madam Chair, with a change.
yes,
That
Councillor
we allow the matter to be addressed by the reference group, taken to the reference group in the first instance, and then brought back to council. So let the reference group examine that issue. Obviously not touch on the legal ramifications because that's set in concrete, but get another fresh set of eyes on the matter and then bring it back to council. That's what I'd like to do if there's support here, rather than us jumping and making a decision tonight.
Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Werner.
And the reason I'm saying that, there's other opportunities there. Like, we talk about a fence. For me, for one, if I lived adjacent to the park for several years and all of a sudden there was a big 6 metre fence, I'd be a little bit horrified. But that's me. Other people might like the fence. I can't talk for them on their behalf. But it's gone, a lot of water's gone under this bridge. We really need to examine opportunities for that fence, whether it's to retain it, whether it's to beautify it, whether it's to, as I was speaking to Councillor Jansen, colour it a different colour. Plant passion fruits, whatever needs to be done to make it a more aesthetic environment for the people. The other thing I did earlier today was just Google, just to see if there was alternatives. And I find there's a company, and I know there's several, that do temporary 6 metre high fences where you can erect it in the morning and pull it down at night. So there's an opportunity there. I think they're called play-in sports. They provide a fence situation where it could be part of the requirements of the people using the park to set up that fence every day if it's needed, absolutely needed, and then pull it down at the end of the day. I haven't examined the cost, but that could be an opportunity we could explore down the track if you really, really need to have a 6 metre high fence to keep the our insurance people happy and on board, and also placate the neighbours. If it needs to be up during sporting times, so be it. I can't speak for that. I haven't been down to that park to watch the games being kicked around, but I do know that that particular fence has minimal impact on the way that the game's played and in catching the balls, because the balls are obviously kicked towards the goal mouths. They're not going to be kicked randomly out the side, and if it's kicked out the side, it'll be an obscure ball going over the houses anyway. So that's what I believe. I think we should take it back to the reference group, or allow the reference group to meet and have a conversation around that fence and other matters, and then bring it back to council forthwith. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Souness. Councillor Savinovsky.
Madam Mayor, I intend to move a foreshadow amendment to it with matters off the committee's recommendation, and I want to add that that the reference group, one of their charters will be to look at advanced planting of landscaping around the strip there. But I just wanted to remind the residents and those watching Facebook, they may have had a memory loss. I am the one that moved the fence to be removed. I'm the one that moved it. It came from a notice of motion, but I'm the one that moved for the fence. Now, I don't have a problem, what Councillor Souness and want a suggestion, but the fact of the matter is, councillors, we have, whether they're an insurance company or whatever, we have a document to say that we have a potential risk. That's the part that I can't get over it. Now, the reference group can't address that because at the end of the day, we have a report. It's our duty and responsibility to action that, and the recommendation by our independent body is there is a potential risk. We're a board of directors. We have to protect the residents of not only Gardiner Park, but the 160,000 or 170,000 residents that we have. So we can't sort of push it aside. We can't push it aside. So what I'm suggesting is, if my foreshadowed amendment is, keep the fence there, ask the reference group, because the original resolution the year before which I moved, was to have advanced landscaping, like a buffer zone, from Gardiner Park to the residents. Now that the committee has been formed, that's one of the things that the committee will be looking at. Now, once we do the landscaping improvements, we may go back to the independent company that's brought down the report to say that it's a potential risk. Whatever works that we do, whatever landscaping works we do, they may come back and give us the tick to remove the fence. And that's the most logical thing, but in the meantime, we have to protect the interests of the ratepayers of Bayside when we've got a report. Now, councillors, as I've been the longest here, we had a report at Botany Pool from our independent group. They said there's a potential risk of the water slides. So what did we do? We shut down the water slides because we had the potential risk of being sued. Many years ago, we used to have a jetty opposite Novotel. Guess what? There was an independent report and said the jetty is a risk to the community. What did Rockdale Council do? We demolished the jetty. We demolished it because there was a document that said if something ever happened, they'll subpoena us and say to us, you had a report, what did you do about it? Down in Fifth Ward many years ago, we had an issue with our drains. And there was an audit report done and it identified a potential risk in relation to the drain. What did Rockdale Council do? We covered the drains, so there's no potential on it. So all I'm asking in my foreshadowed amendment is, keep the fence there, let the reference group come up with a solution, or in cooperation with our staff, they'll come up with landscape drawings in line with what we moved 2 years ago and last year.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'd like to speak to the foreshadowed motion if I can. Is that possible at this point? Yeah. Look, I'm in agreement with the foreshadowed motion. I've got to say that I come to this with clean hands. I'm not suggesting that anyone else has got dirty hands, but I wasn't on council when all of this was decided. But I've actually taken it upon myself to go down to Gardiner's Park on 4 separate occasions, and on each occasion I've walked around the park, and I've been there on 3 occasions when soccer has been played, and I've spoken to soccer players, I've spoken to soccer officials, I've spoken to ordinary members of the public not associated with the soccer, I've spoken to people using the playground area, I've spoken to other people using their dogs, and I've attempted to get feedback from people as to what they think about the park and what they think about what's been done there. And I'm going to speak honestly in that I think what has actually been done, even though a lot of people don't agree with the synthetic fields, and I'm putting that to the side, I think what's been done there at this point in time is good. I don't think there has been anything done that has overtaken the park. Now, I've looked at this particular fence in question. The The fencing that has been done down there has been done in black, and that is so that you actually see through the fence. Now, if the reference group goes to examine this issue, I think we need to be able to get permission to get into the backyards of a couple of those houses that are down lower. Because a lot of those houses, from what I can see, if not all of them, had quite advanced plantings in their backyard. And those houses are all single story and they're all much lower. Now, I don't really think that this fence is actually obstructing any view to any great extent, nor do I believe that it's actually aesthetically ugly, because these things are done in black so that you can see through them. In fact, I think planting it out might actually be detrimental to it. So I'm reserving my judgment on the basis that I have not viewed it from the backyards of those houses, but they are all single-storey dwellings. They are much lower, which means if a soccer ball was to go over, it's much easier to get over into their yards. And there might be hundreds of soccer balls over there, and there's nothing to stop those fields being turned around. Sometimes fields are actually soccer fields are turned around to even out the wear. So at the moment, okay, they might be running that way, which means a ball, you know, difficult for it to skew off. But there's nothing preventing those fields being turned around and the balls being kicked that way. And then it's likely we'd be getting complaints, oh, hang on, we're getting all the soccer balls in our backyards. So I think it's important for everyone involved in this to really go down and have a look at it. And I think we need to be able to get permission to get into a couple of those backyards to view it from the residents' backyards to see actually what the complaint is. So I'm supporting the foreshadowed motion, but I'm signalling at this point in time my personal view at the moment is I think the fence is fine. Thank you.
Yes, please. I would just like to say that I've been to Gardiner Park, and I've also been to other parks like Ador and McCarthy and parks like that, and also Arncliffe Park, which actually has much lower fences. And I just want to point out that the really high fences do give those parks a really industrial look. And considering that so many of our beautiful green open spaces that are, you know, for everyone, not just for sport, now have, you know, been taken over by one particular sport, I think that we should really be careful not to sort of industrialise all our public spaces. So I think it would be better to either have a lower fence or to consider you know, not having this particular fence at Gardiner Park. And I think it would be a really good idea to defer this to the reference group for that reason, and also to give a bit more time to look into whether there really, you know, are those risks, because the first motion, yeah. So I'm basically supporting the first motion to defer this to the reference group, because I think there are broader considerations here, not just about, you know, what it looks like from someone's backyard, but what we are actually doing to our public spaces. And I think putting huge 6-metre high fences in our public spaces does make them look more industrial, and I think that's not necessarily what we want for our public spaces. Thanks.
I'd like to speak on the foreshadowed. On the foreshadowed.
Well, actually, I'm going to speak on both in combining them, because they're basically so similar it's not funny. Take out the bit about the plantings and you've virtually got the same thing. So it's going, if whichever one it is, it goes to the reference group. Maybe you don't examine options. You don't say advanced planting. I was down there today. Yes, you know, the water's there. I think I was there My daughter used to play hockey there over 40 years ago, or 40 years ago it would have been. So it was very muddy then, extremely muddy, and not very level. But I agree, you've got to look at the fences from the backyards of people's places. I found where I was looking at it was, as Councillor Hannah said, at back it didn't sort of jump at you. It wasn't white, it wasn't silver. And I feel that the advice we have, I'm not a legal expert, I'm not anything but of that sort of nature, but we've got to look at that. So I feel that either of those options they're so similar, I think they should just be combined. And the reference group can actually look at it. We can go down there and really examine it, and hopefully it's not raining, because you know the overland flow in that park is amazing, but that's anywhere where you're downstream, which my house is, and it gets affected.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking in support of the foreshadowed motion. I don't believe it's potentially sensible to remove the fence before the reference group have a meeting or are going through their process, because this may be something that's addressed with different aesthetic options, as Councillor Saravanosky stated. I think there's also other things that can be addressed around that fence line as well, such as flooding. There's still a bit of water pooling issues around there, so maybe some kind of landscaping aesthetic options will also address that too. Thank you.
Speaking, of course, for the foreshadowed motion, which I seconded, just the fundamental difference is we're making a decision. The motion from Councillors Souness and Werner, respectfully, and I agree with Councillor Barlow that they're fairly similar, but the difference is that the top one is we're deferring it, we're not actually making a decision. The second one says, based on the information we have tonight, and we have received information, and it's in the reports from the committee as well as tonight, that we're making a decision. The fence is going to stay. The reference group has now been formed. Now, as a result of the reference group, remember there's 4 councillors on that reference group. Now, if more information comes to light in relation to legal advice or risk advice or assurance or anything like that, when there's other ideas, whether it's an option of advanced planting or any other things, any one of those 4 councillors, in fact anyone here, can bring a new motion at a point in time to revisit this matter, and that the new information can be tabled at that point. So the difference between the first and the second is the first one is just saying defer it and let's do. The second one is to say we're leaving it in place based on the information we have, which is the common sense risk-based decision that we're taking on behalf of Bayside residents. The matter will be discussed by the reference group, and anyone on that any councillor excuse me, as a result of the outcomes of that reference group, can bring a new motion with new information which we can debate and discuss at the time. So that's why, in my view, the foreshadowed motion makes a little bit more sense. Thank you.
I've forgotten what I'm speaking to. No, that's correct. Councillor Morrissey is absolutely correct. If there is an appetite for 2 councillors to bring the matter back to council to change, remove the fence or do whatever with the fence, that opportunity exists. At this point, I'd like to withdraw the motion. I think Councillor Werner's happy with that, because it is the same thing, right? There's no point beating around the bush. At the end of the day, the fence is there. I know the safety aspect is in place that is surrounding the insurance information. I don't buy that for a minute, but that's me. I'm a bit wary of insurance people. Secondly, if I was a resident of that property there, I'd be very, very unhappy, which I understand a lot were at the time, especially last year around election time, that a 6-metre high fence appeared behind my backyard. If I bought a property that I could see the park, I could see the hillside and all the rest of it, I would be very unhappy. So that's a thing that was explored by a lot of people, expressed by a lot of people, I should say, and it is a very, very valid point, because the opportunity for those residents to comment didn't exist. I hope I'm not treading on legal grounds here, but the opportunity under the Part 5A to express their opinion of a planning matter adjacent to their property didn't exist for them, but that's fine. So now we're moving on to a different mechanism, which is discuss items around the park itself. There's more than just plantings, as we discussed. If you walk around the entire park, I don't know if Mark, Councillor Hannah had, if you walk around the top, there's a lot of trip hazards. There's a lot of, if you're talking insurance issues, there are trip hazards and roots and crumbling concrete and crumbling sandstone all around that park. It's an insurer's haven up there, because there are opportunities for people to trip. So as long as the budget permits, again, we've got to talk about budgetary constraints, we can do a lot to that park. We can beautify it in all sorts of ways. There's a little park in the corner that could be refreshed. There's the walkway all the way atop, on top of the back of the park, which brings you back down. There's the picnic facilities that are a bit haphazard there. We can improve upon them. We can add to them. So there's a whole host of opportunities. So we'll leave it at that. The motion's, whatever it was has become the motion now. Let's support that. Let's let the reference group get together and have their say, have the public express their opinion, and then we'll bring it back to council, and then we'll examine those matters. Thank you.
Can I just make one with Councillor Sarakanovsky's agreeance? Is that a word? Just in fairness, not to limit the options, just to change that slightly to examine options, comma, including planting of. Because we want to examine all options. It's not to dictate that we just want that. We want to examine options, including planting, because we want to know what all the options are. There we go. Is that all right? Yep.
I'm quite happy to, I'm quite happy to include that. Oh, Councillor Madula,
Well, I'll just be very brief, and I think the sentiment's all the same here. This was resolved on last year. The fence would be removed. We have received this advice, and obviously, we're looking at other options on how to deal with this. Just in response to some of the comments made by the residents about civic risk, and I know that the staff don't have an opportunity to respond, but this is a mutual organisation. It's owned by the members, including Bayside Council. We represent our interest there effectively as a customer. So it's wrong to say there's no day-to-day involvement in the operations of the organisation, and that's just incorrect to say that removes the independence from this organisation.
Thank you for clarifying that,
Thank
Councillor
you
McDougall.
for everyone here and to the service of some of our staff on that organisation.
Thank you. Now, before the right of the reply, are there any other speakers? I invite you for the right of reply, Councillor Sarakanovsky.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Simmons, and thank you, Councillor Werner, for withdrawing. Look, at the end of the day, we're all on the same wavelength. We all want to get the same outcome. I just wanted to, I should have done it before, but in terms of, I'm not sure if it's appropriate for number 3, that we write to the residents that nominated to be on the reference group that weren't successful, to put the hand out and say, if you've got any ideas, please write to, continue have your say, and they may have an opportunity to talk about the fence. And just to include, if we can, or maybe if we can add it after the previous motion.
Just a different, item.
I'm okay with that. But I just want to emphasise again, we're all in agreement, Madam Mayor, in terms of the ward councillors in relation to the fence. On it, something's got to happen. But I can't consciously forget the fact that we've got a report, and my obligations as a councillor, that we have a report that identified a potential risk. Whatever that risk is, I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm not sure, but we've got an independent report that says that, and as I said, we're obliged to take that on board. Now, whatever happens in terms of point 2, that may overcome this potential risk, and let's keep working with the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sarakanovsky. We have a new motion in front of us, as is seen on the screen. We have a mover and a seconder. All in favour say aye. Against? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Just in the interests of health and well-being, I invite everyone in the chamber to take a couple of minutes to have a stretch, please. Okay, councillors, can we resume our seats, please? You shouldn't have. Okay, councillors, thank you. We'll resume, and just for the, we'll wait for till we're on. Thank you, councillors. Just to let you know that Councillor Cedric has had to take a leave of absence, so he's left the meeting. Councillor McDougall and Councillor Naji have left the meeting as well. All right, so now we continue with public forum. We are dealing with item CPE 22.018, the planning proposal for 215 to 235 O'Riordan Street and 1 to 3 Ewan Street, Mascot, which can be found in the minutes of the City Planning and Environment Committee meeting. So we have 5 speakers, and I will invite the speakers one by one. And as there are 5 speakers, I believe you've been informed that it's 2 minutes per speaker, and I ask that all speakers do not repeat what's been said previously by a former speaker, please. I'll now invite Mr. Ian Caddy, the applicant, to come and address us, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
First, we could reduce that number of speakers if that would be an assistance, and particularly if we could maybe have a minute more for those who do speak rather than...
Yeah, Mr. Caddy, I'm happy to, you've got, how many, 2, 4, 6, 10 minutes, so how you would like to distribute that 10 minutes?
3 and 3 would be great. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I refer you to my letter of 22nd of July to the Mayor, which was copied to all councillors. I won't reiterate that, but that goes into some detail about concerns about the committee recommendation. The matter went to the BLPP on the 14th of June, and with little discussion was supported. So then at the Community Planning Environment Committee on 13th of July, we thought that the councillors were all familiar with all the questions, and so we didn't trouble council with further presentations, and were somewhat surprised when the matter was then not recommended. We acknowledge that some councillors had concerns about the additional FSR and how that would be arranged, particularly in terms of the height. However, we were not given an opportunity to explain that, and there have been extensive explanations given over time, and I'll try to very quickly do that now. The additional FSR arises from a massing exercise, an urban design exercise that applies all the relevant setbacks, landscaping requirements, height, and so forth. And then it was identified that additional floor space could be achieved within those envelopes, not requiring bigger buildings, but that there was a bit of a mismatch between the floor space ratio control and the other built form controls. So all we're saying is that utilising existing controls, we can fit more in, and doing so is consistent with relevant strategic planning objectives. The other issue, in terms of residents, the only residents are across O'Riordan Street, quite a major road, in quite a large apartment building themselves, of similar scale. The other issue that was raised was the need for a DCP. It's not that that's a piece of work that hasn't been resolved. That would be simply to turn the urban design study into a control instrument. And given the amount of work, which I'll come to, that we've done to date, we would like to get agreement on that outcome before translating it into a development control plan. There's no additional analysis required. It's merely a translation exercise. We didn't present all this to the committee on 13th of July, as these matters have been presented on numerous occasions, albeit possibly to a differently constituted council. As this application has been in since late 2018, there's been 4 rounds of addressing issues with numerous consultant reports that have been iterated 4 times, and with council's own analysis each time of those. Over this time, council is encouraged to continue undertaking significant cost and additional work in response to issues raised, and have on several occasions supported the substance of the proposal. Last October, council resolved to support the planning proposal, and that is the key stage in the stage, and referred it to the Department of Infrastructure and Environment, who issued gateway approval. Following exhibition in May this year, there was only one submission made. That was a submission in support of the proposal, so there aren't residents objecting to this. Transport for New South Wales, the only public authority who made submissions, is satisfied that it can proceed and that the matters can be dealt with down the process. Not only does this proposal include community benefits in the form of significant medical facilities, which are required to be delivered as part of it, it also delivers significantly improved employment, which is a strategic objective at both state and council's own LSPS level. But it involves delivering half of the uplift value to council through a VPA equating to $12 million of infrastructure that council itself has identified as being sorely needed. In short, the proposal has both strategic and site-specific merit, which are the 2 key tests, and all potential issues and processes have been followed. We are now at the final stage. The point of following council's own flowchart of the planning proposal process, of this stage of the process, is to consider public submissions. The only submission was a single submission in support of the proposal. So we find it very concerning that at this point, to have the committee just recommend that the whole process of 4 years just stop, and at the committee, without even discussion or an opportunity for us to respond to those. So in short, and we have some further presentations from the architect and our legal representative in preparing a VPA that has been progressed at significant cost, including us covering council's legal costs, on the understanding that this matter was proceeding. We would urge council to now proceed with their previous resolutions and progress this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caddy. And who are the additional people addressing? Is it Mr. Leo Chandy?
Also, Matt Sonta from Mills Oakley Lawyers is the next, and he'll be followed by Kirk McDonald of Mode Architects.
Okay, Mr. Sonta, I invite you to address councillors.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name's Matt Sonta. I'm a partner in the Planning and Environment team at Mills Oakley, and I was engaged early on as part of this process to advise on the delivery of the public benefits associated with the planning proposal. I only want to talk to you about 3 things, and I'll keep it short. The first thing is, from a statutory perspective, there are 3 levels of assessment through which this proposal has passed to come to this point. That is council, council's appointed independent panel on the local planning panel, and the Department of Planning, Infrastructure and Environment. And at each of these stages, all assessment has considered it worthy of support and worthy to proceed. The second thing I want to talk to you about shortly is the public benefit offer associated with the PP. I understand there was some reservation previously about the impact the planning proposal would have on the community, and I can't emphasise enough that that is fundamental to your decision. The planning proposal was supported by a VPA in a quantum of $12 million. That quantum to be spent solely for the benefit of the public in the locality for the purpose of public infrastructure and benefits in line with council's own adopted policies. The VPA I drafted and negotiated with the solicitor engaged by the council ensured that that $12 million would only be spent for public infrastructure in accordance with your own policies for the benefit of your constituents within the locality. The second thing to note in relation to that is my clear instruction from the start was that the negotiation of the VPA was not to be offset against development contributions. And let me just make that practically clear. As part of the planning proposal, a VPA was offered. That $12 million will get transferred through to the council for spending on local infrastructure. When any DA is submitted, the proponent of that DA will then need to pay development contributions in line with your contributions plan under section 711. So there are two counters for the delivery of public infrastructure here. And just let me put that amount in context. The $12 million delivery for no height increase, no change in zoning, but additional FSR on the site is equivalent to the contribution that would be delivered from 555 one-bedroom apartments or 338 two-bedroom units. So in terms of revenue collection for spending on public infrastructure, the $12 million is equivalent to the delivery of 500 apartments and the contribution associated with that. The third thing I'll speak to you about is just this. From a practical perspective and a planning and a strategic perspective, you have an opportunity here, an opportunity that yourselves, your predecessors, the local planning panel and the Department of Infrastructure have identified. You have the consolidation of a whole city block in your employment generating zones. Every study that has been undertaken has done nothing but prove that this site can accommodate the additional GFA that's proposed. We're now at the last step in this process. There is a large infrastructure contribution proposed by my client that he doesn't shy away from, and I urge you to take this opportunity that's been recognised by your predecessors, your local planning panel and the Department of Planning, Infrastructure and Environment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sonta. And the third and final speaker is Mr. Kirk McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors, members of the public. I'm Kirk McDonald from Mode Design, here speaking in support of the planning proposal. Mode prepared the architectural concept designs and urban design reports originally submitted in December 2018, and have also provided amendments and additional information over the past 3.5 years in response to council requests and comments. Mode have undertaken extensive detailed analysis of the site and surrounding urban context with multiple iterations of different FSRs and resulting building envelopes being tested on the site. This analysis was undertaken in conjunction and informed by inputs prepared by an extensive consultant team, including planning, economic, social impact, environmental, aviation, traffic, civil, geotechnical and acoustic consultants. The analysis identified existing and future desired building use and densities in the surrounding areas and provides detailed diagrammatic and quantitative verification of the different FSRs applied to the site. Testing proposals at a 3:1 FSR, which is the current LEP control, produced a building envelope that fell considerably short of the maximum permissible height and setback controls. A significant underutilisation of a significantly placed site, and what we consider to be a missed opportunity for the area and for the local community. Testing of a proposal at 5.5:1 FSR, the original planning proposal submission, produced a building envelope that sat comfortably within the permissible height and setback controls. Upon further feedback from council, noting that an FSR of 5.2:1 would be more appropriate to the site, we then subsequently tested that proposal, producing an envelope that sits well within the permissible height and setback controls and is in keeping with the existing context and future desired outcomes for the area. It should be noted that that 5.2:1 FSR does not maximise the development to the permitted building envelope extents, thus providing ample flexibility to incorporate building separation, articulation and landscaped areas. Further testing of traffic implications, solar access, overshadowing and landscape requirements have all been undertaken and form part of the submitted reports. All impacts have been assessed to date as appropriate for the site and surrounding context and do not adversely impact any residential areas. Detailed traffic analysis has informed appropriate traffic strategies on site and on-site parking numbers, any recommendations from Transport for New South Wales are all achievable on the site through future design development. Further analysis, detailed analysis and design would be undertaken and submitted as part of any forthcoming DA application. We believe that the planning proposal represents an important opportunity to deliver a well-considered and world-class outcome for the site and for the community, an outcome that not only provides a much-needed aesthetic uplift for such an important gateway corridor, but also provides extensive social and economic benefits to the local and extended community.
Thank you, Mr McDonald.
We reiterate our support for the development and thank Bayside Council.
Thank you very much. So that's 3 speakers. Are you on there? Yes, I thought we had agreed to 3, but I am happy to give you 2 minutes.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, councillors. Just very quickly, 2 things I just wanted to say. One is that over the last 4 years, we as a group, as consultants, as a proponent, have worked together with council at every step of the way. So regarding FSR, we've worked with council, regarding traffic, regarding urban design outcomes, regarding transportation, everything's been working together with council to get this opportunity now. It hasn't been against council in any way whatsoever. It's all been positive to get to this point. The other thing I'd just like to say is who benefits from this? The local community. It's an area in Mascot that really could do with a bit of love, a bit of care, a bit of revitalisation. And this development provides a lot of care for that local community, and there'll be medical suites, there'll be part of the use, there'll be jobs created for the local people to enjoy and use. So the 2 things I simply wanted to say, how it's been a 4-year process of collaboration with all of us, and the benefits will hopefully be evident with the people who live and work in the area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for taking the time to address councillors. I think it's just important to make the point that this proposal has gone over 2 different terms of council. So its decisions were made by a previous term of council, different term of council. So just for the context to be clear there. So we currently have a committee recommendation in front of us, and that is, we might put that up on the screen, and that committee recommendation was that council does not support the planning proposal for land at 215 to 35 O'Riordan Street and 1 to 3 Ewan Street due to the adverse impacts the increased FSR will have on the community, and that was moved by Councillor Werner and seconded by Councillor Muscat at that committee. So,
just questions before we put out the about the committee's recommendation. Just talking about the EPA, the $12 billion, assuming that we support the committee's recommendation tonight, what is the next step, and would we use the $12 billion?
yeah, I might get, just before we do that, can I have a mover and a seconder for the motion that's before us?
I'll just move. I was on that committee and I didn't understand it fully.
Let's just get a mover and a seconder first. So we've got a mover.
Well, I'm
Councillor
moving a motion. I'm moving that this is deferred to a council workshop. I spoke to the Director of City Futures today, and some of the explanations are there. I will admit that I didn't fully understand it, but there's no residential in it. It's all commercial, which is amazing. And the $12 million, I said, where can that money go? A lot of that can go to the pool. It's got to be around there. Is that correct?
Pool's
that
funded.
it can be used in other areas? So there's an issue there, and because it is no hire, they obviously are clever at designing, I don't know, but so I'm actually moving it for a council workshop because I feel everyone here doesn't fully understand it, including me. I do understand it a lot better now, so that's what I actually would like to move.
Is there a seconder to count?
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Awada. So we have a motion that this be deferred for councillor information session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just move a foreshadowed motion that the recommendation be adopted.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Jansen. So we have a foreshadowed motion there. Are there any speakers to either the motion or the foreshadowed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to get clarification about the VPA. If the foreshadowed motion moved by Councillor Morrissey and Jansen was to basically supporting what the committee recommendation is made, what will happen? Will council lose the money if it went to the New South Wales panel for approval?
I might refer to the director, please. Thank you, Mr. Barber.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. The planning agreement is related to the planning proposal. It's an offer by the proponent to council. It's a matter for the proponent, but I would expect that they would not proceed with the planning agreement if the planning proposal doesn't proceed. In terms of it being considered by the state government, there is no automatic or available right of review for the proponent at this late stage in the process to refer it to the regional planning panel or the Department of Planning. There are other avenues that they could take to attempt to get the planning proposal through, but at this point in time there's no automatic referral or opportunity for review by the state government.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Are there any other speakers?
So thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just provide some context. So the reason I moved the foreshadow motion is just to give councillors on the floor a choice. I completely understand Councillor Barlow, and if the floor supports deferring this and going to information session, of course the foreshadow motion won't be heard, and that conceptually I have no problem with that. I just wanted to give the councillors who do feel they're in a position to make a decision tonight that they have got the opportunity to do that. My position, if we look when this was back before us, there was 9 councillors present. It was 5-4. It was very close. The motion was passed that it does proceed to Great Way. I was one of the people who voted against that. So my position has not changed. That said, as Madam Mayor says, it's a new council. People have different views and different positions on that. So that's the reason I moved the foreshadow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm speaking to support the foreshadowed motion. I must admit I'm really not on top of this, but I've got to say, and I thank the applicants for coming along and addressing us here tonight. And if it does go to an information session, I really would like the applicants to actually be given the opportunity to come and present to us, and in particular some montages, plans, how this proposed development is going to look, because I'd love to get a feel for it in a lot more detail. So I definitely don't feel I'm in a position to be able to reject this based on the recommendation of the committee. I think this really is a matter that needs to be determined properly, fully, in a considered manner by a full council meeting, and I think to put ourselves in a much better position if we have a very detailed information session. We afford the applicants the opportunity to come along and present to council at that information session. We're then going.
So you're supporting the motion, not the foreshadowed?
I'm supporting the.
Yeah, the motion.
The motion. Sorry, the motion. Sorry about that. Having heard the presentations here tonight by the applicant, it seems to me that we've got to be very, very careful not to kiss goodbye to something that could be actually quite beneficial to our community, both financially and otherwise. So I'm definitely supporting the motion, but I would like the applicants to come along and present. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Werner?
Thank you.
I would just like to say that, oh well, I guess I'd like to ask, what's the point of having an LEP? You know, LEPs are drafted by staff painstakingly and with a lot of thought put into the LEP. So, and the planning proposals actually change the LEP. So the thing is, and that's like a piecemeal process. So I want to support the foreshadowed motion because I think that it's much better to have an LEP which has been considered, and we've only just had our recent LEP, which was in, I think, 2021. So at that time, staff spent a lot of time considering what should be built where and you know, the land use and so on. So I think going through these piecemeal planning proposals, I think, is not the best way of doing planning. And on that basis, I would say I would support the foreshadowed motion.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Any other speakers? Okay, so we'll deal with the motion first.
Right of reply.
You can have the right of reply.
Thank you. Look, the only reason I have moved this to a council information session is I believe including me, I wasn't fully informed. I actually had on the wrong side of the road at one stage. But this is commercial. It is not even an apartment. There is nobody going to be living there as in residents. The VPA that the money they're offering to go is wonderful because the people that are coming there to the business park, or call it a business park, will be going again. So they'll only be there temporarily. So that's the reason it's no higher. They obviously have designed it better. I agree with Councillor Hannah, it'd be nice to see it all. It's not, if it had been, and then if we get a new LEP, it might end up another 5 stories higher, it could be all different. At the moment, it is no higher than any other building there, and that's when I started reading the report and spoke to the director. So that's the only reason I feel it should be deferred, so that we're all fully informed. It is all a business area. I mean, it's brave of someone to build something that is totally mainly for the businesses in the area. It's bringing people to the area, and then temporarily. So, and I think the $12 million to be spent in the local area is something you shouldn't be you should be thinking about, especially if it can go to the pool.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. So we have a motion before us, so because it's a planning matter, it has to be a division. So I'll just go round the table. So the motion we are dealing with is a motion moved by Councillor Barlow and Councillor Wada, and that this matter be deferred to account. No. Thank you, Councillor Souness. So that the matter be deferred to a information session. So I'll go round. Councillors, Councillor Morrissey, are you for or against? Councillor Muscat, for or against? Councillor Fardell, for or against? Councillor Jansen, for or against? Councillor Saranowski? Councillor Souness? Councillor Werner? Councillor Wada? Councillor Barlow? Councillor Hannah? Thank you. And mine, I voted against this last time. I will continue. I will vote against it again. I'm at the top. How many is that?
I'll move the original recommendation. The original recommendation as the committee before it was changed. So I'm moving the original recommendation.
So, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a foreshadowed motion that the councillor recommendation is adopted for the simple reason that there's no end date. These are vulnerable people who have had a council service for years and years and years and years, and the committee recommendation made at committee puts an end to that. So we have to work with these vulnerable people who are pensioners in our community. I understand the drivers behind it, but we've also got a duty of care to our pensioners who have had this service. So the discussion at committee was somewhat similar, but with no end date, that we're having council officers work with these residents and ask them to opt in, and they will have support provided to them to help them opt into the other services available, and we look at it in 12 months' time to see the success. So there's naturally a runoff as people move out of their homes, as people move on, or as maybe family members move in and they start cutting the lawn. So there is a this is a declining group of people, in numbers over the years where this service has less demand for it. But I really disagree that we put an end date, and people rely on council for basic things, and it's been done for such a long period of time. We can't just stop it.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that the report to committee detailed the numbers we're talking about. And correct me if I'm wrong, the numbers weren't that high, but I echo Councillor Morrissey in that I think it is wrong to not give an end date, but to help transition our residents. And were we talking about currently about 90 residents? So it's not a lot of residents, but they are reliant on this service currently. So I am in support of the foreshadowed motion.
The motion moved by, yes, and Councillor Valla. I suppose I need to preface my remarks by saying I'm not a heartless person. People that know me, I think, generally will agree with that. When this council was forcibly merged with Botany Council, there was a great resistance to it, particularly from the Botany side. And I do remember court challenges and all sorts of things and bring back Botany Group and everything. That was nearly 6 years ago. And I thought by this point in time, the council would have looked under every rock. But it seems like we're still turning up rocks and finding things. And I was thinking about dialing 000 and asking for the Guinness Book of Records, because when I read this I was momentarily speechless, because I have never heard of a local council going into private properties and mowing people's lawns. I've never heard of it. And when I read the report, I read a section there that said this could only be done on a resolution of council. Now this has been going on for 20 odd years. I'd like to know when the resolution of Botany Council was made to actually make this legal. And I'd like to guess that this council and its predecessors at law have probably been in breach of the Local Government Act. Because to go onto private property and do work on private property, there has to be a resolution of council. And from what I can see, that hasn't taken place. Now this will probably be the resolution of council. And what is being proposed by our motion... Yeah. Oh, that's right, but... Yeah.
I've just been reminded that this was actually a confidential item at the committee. So, look, as long as, you know, I think we can deal with the two, we just can't discuss detail, but we can certainly deal with the motion and the foreshadowed motion. Thank you, Councillor Hannah.
Yeah,
Councillor.
thank you. Look, this clearly gives an end date. So this gives nearly 12 months to transition these people that are currently still on this service. I really don't think it's in the interest of this council to kick the can down the road, because this gives another 11 months to start transitioning these people onto another service. I really don't think that local government should be involved with going onto private property and mowing people's lawns. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Muscat.
Thank you. I'd just like to say I'm in support of the foreshadowed motion, and the main concern that I wanted to express was that we do have seniors out there that do not have access to computers and technology, who still rely on the handwritten format, and it was proposed that council would support those residents who didn't have those facilities or language barriers to assist them in transitioning, and then reviewing in 12 months the number of existing customers, if you want to call them that way, that still needed our support. So we were very strong in looking at our seniors, and we did not feel that it was right just to pull something out straight away and, you know, remove it from them, especially since some of them are quite elderly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. Councillor Naji.
Just a curiosity, a question.
Just be conscious of confidence.
Is the council been aware where an incident, let's say, and sadly someone passed, because it's for the elderly, the pensioners and so on, passed away, okay, being new owners, sold the house, and we're still providing that service? Has that ever happened? Sorry, I'm just
that's
curious.
I think if councillors have these sort of questions, we would have to move into confidential. So is there a desire to move into confidential or not? Or are we happy to just deal with it?
What I want to say can be done in the public domain, so if you want to go into confidential and back out.
Yes, all right. Well then, we have a mover to go into confidential, moved. Yeah, but we need to move that we're going to defer it to confidential, yeah. Councillor Wada, seconded. Councillor Barlow. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. All right. So that now takes us back to the minutes of the City Planning and Environment Committee meeting, and we have the CPE 22.016, which is the draft amendment to the Rockdale Section 94A contributions plan and pooling of contributions under the ministerial direction of May 2020. So if we can just have the motion up on the screen, that so there's the motion that we go to public exhibition for the draft amendment to the contribution plan as part of the Barton Park project. So I'll just give you a moment to read that. Okay, so this is a division, hence why it has to come to full council. So we've got a mover, Councillor Souness, second and Councillor McDougall. I'll go round the room for a division. So if you are in favour of this recommendation from the committee, please say agree. If you do not, disagree. Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Muscat. Councillor Vidal. Councillor Jansen. Councillor Naji. Councillor Saranowski. Councillor Souness. Councillor Werner. Councillor Wada. Councillor Barlow. Councillor Hannah. Councillor McDougall. I agree. Therefore, that's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That now takes us to item CPE 22.017, which is the draft planning agreement at 13B Church Avenue and 6 to 8 John Street, Mascot. So I'll ask Councillor Naji and McDougall to leave the chamber. So this has purely been pulled out purely because of they both sit on the Eastern Region Planning Panel. So the original draft planning agreement is up on the screen. Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Jansen, seconded Councillor Awada. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour say aye. Against, I declare it carried. Okay. Wait for councillors to come back in. All right, councillors, this brings us to item number 12, notices of motion. So 12.1, we have a notice of motion, Bayside Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. That's moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Morrissey. Are there any speakers? Councillor Jansen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I should have retitled this community reference groups, this notice of motion. Originally it was about one reference group, then it expanded out that a report be prepared for a number of key reference groups that can advise on particular themes. So I don't know if we need to amend the motion to include that it's regarding community reference groups in general, and not just about the Bayside Arts and Culture Advisory Committee.
Yeah, I think point 1, Councillor Jansen.
So we are able to change the title of it, or, yeah. Yeah, so this notice of motion is essentially a proposal that council staff investigate and prepare a report on community reference groups, or whatever they may be called, focus groups, because Bayside is home to a number of significant organisations and individuals. So I can just name check, for example, in terms of arts and culture, we have some of the longest established arts and cultural companies in the country, such as Shopfront Arts, Rockdale Opera Company, the Guild, Rockdale Musical Society, Claypool, and this can be said for all of the other themes that are there as well. So I think it is a really important step to empower community so that they can provide advice on key initiatives such as, for example, the Bayside Arts Festival, anything to do with environment and climate, the Respect Wrap as that unwinds in the community. So I hope that you support this notice of motion. I think that we can encourage the community to own more events. We can leverage off their support and advice. Thank you.
Councillor Jansen, would you be open to adding, there's a couple of more I'd like to add. Obviously we're doing some important work in the domestic and family violence space, and we've got an action plan that's currently being developed, and it would be good to work with professionals within that field and also community to get their feedback. And the other one is I've been approached by some young people who would really like an opportunity to contribute in a youth forum. So if you're happy to add those as options for the report too.
Certainly in support of that, and I think that that report can identify if there are any further theme areas which may be good to establish a reference group for.
Lovely, thank you. Are there any speakers? Councillor Werner?
Thank you. I would like to support this motion. I think it's a wonderful idea. And I was wondering if we could also add an LGBTIQ+ reference group to the list. I think, yeah, again, this is a wonderful idea. I think this is something that Bayside really needs. Yeah, I'd like to support this motion.
You happy to accept that?
Yes,
Councillor
happy for that to be included. I was initially, my thoughts were that that might be something that is sort of expanded out in the report back to a committee, and that inclusion may include a broader kind of inclusivity themes. But yes, happy to add that to the list.
Councillor Muscat.
Could I ask that we add not just the youth forum, but the youth and seniors as well? Sorry, because the seniors don't have a voice.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm in support of that too, but once again, I would leave it up to staff to propose how some of those reference groups may be.
Yeah, and I don't think we're not proposing, numbers of meetings a year. It may be a yearly forum of some sort, or, spaced out over time, which I'm sure the staff have expertise in and will present something excellent. All right, any other speakers? Councillor McDougall.
Sorry, if we're having an exhaustive list, I appreciate that youth is already in there. But perhaps for giving out, that we are one of the most diverse councils in New South Wales, which would include multiculturalism as well.
Would you like
With
that? Councillor Jansen.
Support of the
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. I'm in support of adding that to the list, but I echo my previous comments that could be up to staff to propose how that theme is covered in a reference group.
Oh.
Just a comment, Councillor Hannah could explain it even better, that we did have a youth council for quite a few years. His son was on it, he might have been the chair at one time. So I don't know what happened, but it did finish, it did end up fizzling out somewhere along the line. You have enthusiastic people for a while and then they just disappear. I mean, great to have all those forums. I don't know how you're going to fit them all in, and I hope the staff can manage. That's my, you've got to
Yeah, and look, they may not all be yearly. You don't, you know.
Yeah, they
there's-
might all be combined together or some.
In some cases, perhaps, yeah. So I'm sure it'll work it out. All right, any other speakers? No, I put the motion. All in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. We have a second motion. We have from Councillor McDougall. And fell off my run sheet. Here it is. Oh, it's there. This is about a bus shelter replacement in Behag Street, Kiama. So moved by Councillor McDougall, seconded by Councillor Hannah. Councillor McDougall.
Sorry, I'll just speak very briefly, because this is obviously intending to move this up in the work schedule. And basically the reasoning behind that, this was obviously taken away, but local residents had been informed by council officers that it was going back in. And when they found out that that was not, you know, that hadn't happened and it had fallen off the work schedule, they were justifiably upset. So this is just keeping faith with the residents who have been told that this was going to occur and it didn't.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Any other speakers?
Oh, just a question on that to the Director. We have talked about in a previous meeting another provider identifying certain bus stops, and I know this is separately looking at council funded, but is that progressing in the background to address all bus shelters? Because it is. Sorry. Yeah.
And sorry, I'm not casting any aspersions on staff. This did fall by the wayside because of this program, is my understanding. So there's no fault anywhere, and you know, I let the director speak to what I obviously know far more about.
Yeah. Through the chair, that's correct. When the staff saw the council resolution to proceed with testing the market for bus shelters, they actually did decide of their initiative to put this shelter onto that list. As you can appreciate, going through that market competitive process is going to take some time. We're also conscious that some locations are going to be very well received by those suppliers, and others in quieter areas and back streets probably less desirable. So because of the time frame to get that tender properly go through the process and come back to council, in discussions with Councillor McDougall, it was agreed that this one could proceed and that the timing was just right to do that rather than wait for the full tender process.
Thank you, General Manager. Okay, no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This takes us to questions with notice. Are there any questions with notice? We have one question with notice. Councillor Hannah, thank you, in relation to a follow-up on an original motion about the Patank Court. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions with notice? Okay, no questions with notice. Well, in a moment we need to go into confidential, but what I might do just prior to going into confidential, because then we sort of only come back for a second, but I think it's important to recognise that one of our directors is leaving us, and it is his last meeting tonight. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to farewell you on your last meeting, and it's not a late one either, and we've become very succinct, so we just want to, and I'm sure other councillors will speak, Councillor Naji, and we'll, but just to say, look, thank you for your, you know, your professionalism, your advice. I know we've had some, there's been, you know, financially there's been challenging conversations over the years, and you've always handled those very well. You've been very approachable by all councillors, and always very open to, you know, looking at things from different views. So we wish you very well, and congratulations starting a GM role at Strathfield Council. which is a wonderful achievement, and I'm sure you'll do a great job, and we're all here if you need any advice. If any other councillors like to say anything?
On a humorous note, I wish we went into confidential because I might get emotional and start crying. Look, honestly, I tried to research in the vocab dictionary. I couldn't, the appropriate word for Mr. Mamo and his professionalism, I really couldn't find it to really describe him. But I take my hat off for him. I ran a corporate company that had 400 staff, and when I first met Mr. Mamo through this council, of course, and the way he was explaining the financial status and the financial, it's unbelievable. I understood him from the word go. It made sense. He made it a lot easier. And I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure other councillors, to understand the figures, the status, the situation, the financial viability, the issues with the council, what we need to do, what solutions, and it will be a big loss to this council that we've lost him, but I wish him all the best, and I'm sure I'll be harassing you and keeping in contact, and we wish you all the best in your new role as the GM, and I'm confident that they're going to be so happy with you, and you will do the job not only professionally, but you will take, knowing the history of, the history of Strathfield, you will take it to the new era there, and all the best, mate. We will really miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll refer to him as Michael. Michael, to you, I fully understand and appreciate. It's a huge stepping stone in your career. I want to wish you the best, and I know you'll do an excellent job at Strathfield. I want you to understand that we as the elected councillors are very proud of what you've achieved in a short period of time, particularly with the rates harmonisation. We went through a very difficult time, and more importantly for me, you're not a bureaucrat, you're a human being. And that's what impressed me the most in terms of seeing you walking through the arcade, buying a cup of coffee when I was under surveillance, watching you. And before you came, I've got to be honest, we checked you out at your previous employer. I spoke to the state member, and he said, he will be a great asset to your organisation. And that was from Steve Barley, and he said, you will never go wrong. And I bumped into Steve the other day and I told him, and he was over the moon. So whilst we will be saddened, but I fully understand, local government's a great opportunity, and I admire you for taking this opportunity, and blame the General Manager for giving you a lousy reference.
Yeah, Michael, I just wanted to quickly say it's been a pleasure working with you, and during my mayoralty you went through a really tough time with the finances, and I know even the Minister coming along, and you did a great job to get us out of that trouble. Now it's a lot easier, you're leaving us, but all I could say, good luck and well done for getting a position as GM at Strathfield. We'll miss you.
I'd just like to, sad to see you go. And you're a brave person, I thought, coming here in the first place with our creative accounting we had. But you achieved something that I don't think many people could have, and have the Auditor General here with an unqualified audit. And again, and I assume again, so you've got to move on, I know, and it's something, and it'll be a lot closer to home, not that far, but it's a lot. I know the drive from Mount Cola, so it's sort of that way. But anyway, so good luck, and I know it's a different council, but I'm sure they'll appreciate you.
You can.
Sorry, I just have to add a footnote to what Councillor Saravinovsky said. He said that Michael is a real human. Well, I want to remind councillors that when you first met this man, you said, it's Clark Kent. It's Superman. He's not human at all. And I think he's proved to be superhuman.
Would you like a right of reply? Let me just get a mover in a second.
No, I contemplated whether I should bring some rate harmonisation slides in for you. No, I just want to thank you for all the kind words. It's like Bayside has been a real opportunity for me, and it's been a privilege to work with you all. You know, there's been lots of challenging conversations and lots of challenging things the council still has ahead, and I'm going to watch on from afar to see how you handle that. It is a career highlight to have come here knowing that the accounts and the financial situation was where it was, and that the team has been able to resolve that. And I think that's really important to recognise is, yes, I'm the director, but there's a team that sits behind me. And they are all very loyal, very dedicated and hard-working professionals. So everything that we've been able to do, and I know they're going to continue to support you, is because of them. So, and just a shout out to Meredith and my fellow executive. It's been a pleasure to work with you all, your leadership. Our Thursdays, they're going to be missed. I've still got one or two left. So, but yeah, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity. It's been a real privilege to work for Bayside.
Okay, councillors, we will now move into closed session. So in accordance with section 10A4 of the Local Government Act and Council's Code of Meeting Practice, I invite members of the public to make representations as to whether or not this part of the meeting should be closed to the public to consider the confidential items. There being no representations, I move that council closes the meeting to the public for the reasons the fact that there was a confidential item from the City Services Committee, that being CS 22.018, confidential pensioner lawn mowing service review. I ask the press and public to leave the chamber before we consider the confidential item. And we're off. Excellent, thank you. So if we can bring up the previous, so where we were, we had a motion in front of us, and then we had a foreshadowed motion in front of us. So was there any more discussion in relation to this item?
I just want...
so you speaking to the foreshadowed, or... Okay, thank you, councillors. As far as the outcome of that particular the outcome of that particular thing was that the motion that was recommended by the committee stands. All right, so thank you everyone for your time, and I declare